In 1969, Las Vegas was about to witness something extraordinary. Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, stepped back onto the stage after a long hiatus. Many thought this would be a one-time event, a flash in the pan, but they were wrong. His appearance at the International Hotel ignited a fire that would burn bright for years to come. The year before, Elvis had dazzled audiences with a short but electrifying run in Vegas. It was a success that no one expected. He combined the raw energy of a bluesman with the heart of a romantic, proving that music could bridge worlds. His shows were a mix of high-octane rock like What I Say and soulful ballads like Memories. Elvis was a force to be reckoned with, a uniter who could make anyone feel like they belonged. When he returned in January 1970, it was clear this wasn't a fluke. The crowd was huge. 1,780 people packed the hall, 300 more than the first night. Elvis looked sharp in his new flashy jumpsuits, designed by Bill Ballou. The show was a hit from the start, with old favorites and new tunes blending seamlessly. One of the highlights was the song Let It Be Me. James Burton, Elvis's guitarist, had written an arrangement for it overnight after Elvis asked for something new. It was a perfect choice, adding a fresh touch to the show. This kind of creativity was typical of Elvis's approach, always pushing the boundaries of what a concert could be. Elvis's band, now known as the TCB Band, was tight and talented. They included James Burton on guitar, Glenn Hardin on keyboards, and Bob Lanning on drums. Each member brought something unique to the table. Hardin, for instance, wasn't just a drummer, he was an arranger who could whip up a new sound in a flash. His work on Let It Be Me showed his talent and helped solidify his place in the band. The shows in Vegas were not just about the music, they were a spectacle. Elvis wore stunning jumpsuits, and the stage was set to impress. Ringo Starr, the legendary Beatles drummer, was in the audience on opening night. Fats Domino joined for a show, and Dean Martin even made an appearance, showing just how big Elvis's draw was. As the months went by, Elvis's Vegas shows became a regular event. Each time, he brought something new. His repertoire expanded to include everything from his own hits to popular songs by other artists. He even tackled songs like Polk Salad Annie, using them as a chance to share bits of Southern culture with his audience. The critics loved his shows. They praised his voice and his showmanship, saying he had become a true king in his own right. One critic wrote that Elvis had done what once seemed impossible. He's become king on his own terms. This was no exaggeration. Elvis was more than just a performer, he was a cultural icon. In August 1970, Elvis's summer festival in Vegas reached its peak. The hotel was decorated with banners and souvenirs, turning the place into a mini Elvis universe. A documentary crew captured the magic of one of these shows, producing a film that showcased Elvis's energy and charisma. The film, Elvis, That's the Way It Is, remains one of the best records of the king at his prime. Elvis's Vegas shows were more than just concerts. They were a celebration of music, a testament to the power of showmanship, and a reminder that, no matter how tough things got, music could always bring people together. And as Elvis took to the stage, the crowd knew they were in for a night they would never forget. Elvis Presley's performances in Las Vegas were a spectacle to behold. He brought a raw energy and emotion to the stage that left audiences in awe. His voice, powerful and passionate, filled the room. When he sang, it was like nothing else mattered. He had a special way of transforming ordinary love songs into something extraordinary. Take The Wonder of You, for example. This song, originally meant for a different singer, became a massive hit for Elvis. His rendition was powerful, almost like he was singing straight from the heart. During his time in Vegas, Elvis had a unique way of performing. He'd often stand with his back to the audience, delivering songs like You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling in a dramatic way. His performances were full of emotion, but never over the top. He had a knack for making even the silliest songs sound important. One song that showed this was The Wonder of You. Elvis took this song, which was initially not his, and made it his own. He recorded it live in Las Vegas, and it became one of his biggest hits. When Elvis performed The Wonder of You on stage, it was like witnessing a masterclass in emotional delivery. He'd start the song softly, then build up to a powerful climax. His voice would crack slightly when he sang about hope, and his eyes would close as if he was lost in thought. He'd use his body language, like raising his hand toward the sky, to show how much the song meant to him. It was as if he was sharing a personal secret with the audience. This ability to connect with people through music was one of Elvis's greatest talents. However, behind the scenes, Elvis's life was becoming increasingly difficult. The constant performances in Vegas, 2 shows a night for weeks on end, took a toll on him. The hotel where he stayed, high up in the Hilton, felt more like a prison than a place to rest. Jerry Schilling, who worked with Elvis, described it as a grind. The lack of sunlight, the long hours, and the isolation began to affect him. Elvis became paranoid and isolated himself even more. He grew dependent on guns and prescription drugs, trying to cope with his stress and exhaustion. The turning point came in August 1970, when there was a threat against his life during a show. The FBI was called, and Elvis was heavily protected. He carried guns himself, performing sideways to minimize his target size. This incident added to his growing paranoia. His behavior on stage started to change. His performances became shorter, filled with distractions and excessive movements. Some audience members even walked out, unimpressed by the show. Critics began to notice the decline. Mark Tan from The Hollywood Reporter described Elvis's performances in Vegas as sloppy and poorly coordinated. Elvis looked tired and heavier, and his voice wasn't as strong as before. Yet, despite this, the fans loved him. They adored him no matter what. This adoration sometimes went to his head, making the shows even more over the top. Elvis's outfits became more extravagant, with jewel-studded capes and dramatic bows. He started performing a medley he called an American trilogy, combining patriotic songs in a way that was both grand and unexpected. This shift in his performances reflected his changing state of mind and health. Elvis was struggling, but the fans remained loyal. His decline was a sad tale, a reminder of the pressures of fame and the toll it can take on even the most talented artists. Despite the challenges, Elvis continued to perform, leaving an indelible mark on the world of music. Elvis Presley's later years in Las Vegas were marked by decline and turmoil, a shadow over the bright star that once lit up the stage with such brilliance. Despite his continued ability to sing, the power in his voice began to wane. Live recordings from 1974 show him still hitting high notes and rocking the crowd, but even then, signs of trouble were present. His appearances became less frequent and more erratic. Elvis's health began to fail him in early 1973. He was tired, overweight, and increasingly dependent on drugs, including powerful painkillers like Demerol. His performances became less steady and more chaotic. In February, a security scare unfolded when some fans tried to rush the stage. Elvis fought them off, even kicking one fan, and later expressed deep regret at the crowd, showing the stress and anger he carried inside. Rumors and real incidents of violence marked his time in Vegas. Elvis blamed a karate instructor, Mike Stone, for his girlfriend Priscilla's affair and even considered hiring a hitman, a shocking request that his closest friends found hard to accept. They tried to handle the situation calmly but could not stop Elvis's escalating behavior. On stage, Elvis's shows became more bizarre. He once rode Lamar Fike like a horse and sang while lying on a bed, adding crude words to his songs. His performances were marked by unpreparedness and outbursts. In 1973, he criticized a hotel for firing a waiter over a personal favor, showing a side that deeply upset his manager, Colonel Parker. Their argument ended with Elvis firing Parker but later reconciling when Parker showed how much money Elvis owed him. In 1975, Elvis's condition worsened. He was hospitalized for 3 weeks, struggling to stop his drug use. He returned to Vegas with brief improvements but quickly fell back into old patterns. His final Vegas performances in 1976 showed a man far from the vibrant performer of the past. He was bloated, immobile, and seemed to go through the motions without joy. Critics noted the sadness in his final shows, wondering how much longer this once great artist could continue. In his last performance, he appeared nearly motionless, a stark contrast to his earlier energetic shows. His final days were marked by a tragic accident. After a night filled with medication and activity, Elvis was found unconscious by his girlfriend in August 1977. He was rushed to the hospital but died later that day. The official cause was cardiac arrhythmia, but an autopsy found traces of 14 drugs in his system, 5 at toxic levels. Elvis Presley's story is one of incredible talent overshadowed by personal struggles and poor choices. His legacy endures, but his later years remind us of the fragility of fame and the human spirit.